Welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. I am your mayor, occasionally known as Derek Montilla, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my buddy and your thunderstick, the one and only Jesse Friedman from Snakes Territory. Jesse, after a drought of news, after a drought of actual Arizona Diamondbacks news to talk about, we are now flooded now that the deadline has come and gone yesterday afternoon. Of course, this show is brought to you by our friends over there at Game Time. Make sure to download that Game Time app, create an account, use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And again, maybe wait a little while and get yourself some Diamondbacks tickets after we talk here a little bit about what 2026 could look at. But yes, Jesse, we have breaking news essentially yesterday that Zac Gallen has accepted, or excuse me, not accepted the Diamondbacks qualifying offer. Actually, quite different there. That's quite a screw up. He has rejected the Diamondbacks qualifying offer, which is something that we knew, I think, was coming. I did feel like there was a little bit of a window open for him that made sense for him to come back. And even after seeing some of the other names that did accept qualifying offers, it might have made sense for Zac to come back. But the D-backs will receive the additional draft pick in between rounds 1 and 2. And again, I guess let's start off with your thoughts. Any surprises hearing this news that Zac Gallen did not accept the qualifying offer?
Not really. Yeah, it really would have been news if Zac Gallen had accepted the qualifying offer. I mean, that's emergency pod level stuff right there.
Yes, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, this I think we've known was coming for at least a month plus at this point. I guess more than that, because Diamondback season has been over for a little while now, 2 months plus. There was, I think, a time in the middle of the season, maybe even at the beginning of the second half of the season, where it wasn't clear to me how this was going to go. I mean, Zac Gallen just frankly was not pitching well enough to be a no-brainer, slam dunk, reject the qualifying offer and go get your big contract type of guy. Obviously, Gallen is still not. I'm not expecting him to go and get $200 million, which felt like a possibility going into the year, but I still think he's going to do pretty well for himself. And it would have been a pretty big shock for me if he had accepted the qualifying offer and stuck around for another year.
I think we heard from Gambo a few weeks ago, in fact, that he had said, based on information he was told, Gallen was not going to accept the qualifying offer. Like you said, there were some things during the season that definitely made us think that perhaps this was going to happen. And quite frankly, Gallen finished 2025 strongly, right? Like he really did turn things around. I do think baseball executives have, far more information and far different feelings than fans do. Fans of the Diamondbacks seem to be kind of applauding the fact that Zac Gallen is gone, applauding the fact that he declined this offer and will no longer be a part of the team. However, I still think that Gallen returning would have fixed one of the biggest problems the Diamondbacks have. The only problem with that is that it really wouldn't have been an upgrade of any kind. There's no excitement about bringing Zac Gallen back, only people keeping their fingers crossed that he will figure it out and turn things around. If you bring in a new guy, even a guy that had a bad season in 2025 with another team, I think there's a different level of hope within the fan base and probably within the organization that the results are going to be different and the change of scenery is going to be good for him. And perhaps if they do go after one of these free agents that just kind of had a bad 2025 year, that guy can turn it around, right? Another team probably sees that in Zac Gallen, but I don't know if the fans here had that feeling, and it's kind of unfortunate because Zac Gallen gave this organization so much in his time here. It's unfortunate that he kind of goes out with like a fizzle, like a bit of a whimper here, instead of it being more of a celebration of what he did for this team.
It really would have been, I mean, again, I was not at all expecting this to happen, but just as a thought experiment, like, what would the reaction have been from the Diamondbacks fan base if Zac Gallen had accepted the qualifying offer? I mean, on one hand, negative. Like, yeah, I think it might be. I mean, on one hand, it's like this guy clearly, I guess, wanted to be in Arizona, maybe to some extent. I mean, it certainly feels like he could have done better on the open market. Certainly could have gotten more than just a 1-year guarantee. Yeah. But yeah, like $22 million is a decent amount of money. I mean, we don't know exactly how much the D-backs have to spend this offseason, but I think it's pretty safe to say that $22 million would be a significant chunk of what they're ultimately going to spend.
Right.
And it's not like Zac Gallen had a great season in 2025.
If he accepted that qualifying offer, I've said it on a few podcasts, like, yes, it solves a problem, but it also creates one very quickly, because we're estimating between 30 and 40 million, right? But I think 40 seems like a lot based on what they are already committed to for next season, with contracts increasing, things like that going up. Like, they have less money overall to spend on the exact same players that are already here. On top of that, though, again, Zac Gallen taking up 22 million of the potentially, let's just say for argument's sake, 35 to 37 million. Like, that does not even leave them with enough money to go out there and get really like more than one quality player. They are truly at that point shopping in the bargain bin, and it's already something that they're going to have to do if they're going to try to fulfill all of their needs through free agents. I doubt that's the case. I don't think that they can. I think they'll have to do something else, like make a trade, or quite frankly, just deal with the solution to some roster problems being in-house, right? And that all would have been created by Zac Gallen accepting that qualifying offer for simply 1 year at 22 million and change.
Yeah, I mean, I think the D-backs are probably going to be, as you're kind of saying, like, they're probably going to be doing some bargain shopping no matter what. But especially if Gallen had accepted this, you figure, we don't know what the number is. Maybe it's 15 more million that they would have to spend. It's hard to get another starter and a closer, and probably another back end reliever. They need a right-handed bat in the lineup, probably some other position player pieces as well. Like, I don't know how you do all that with $15 million.
Right.
I also don't know how you do it with 35 or whatever it is that they actually do have to spend.
Right.
Like, that's still not an easy equation to make fit together. We just did an episode over at Snakes Territory where we were sort of like, is the D-backs offense or off season kind of doomed before it begins? Like, is this a possible task that this front office is facing? And I don't know. It might be. I mean, on paper, it's really hard to imagine them getting enough impact with the money that we think they have to spend without going crazy with trades. And I mean, maybe the D-backs will. I mean, maybe they'll be really aggressive on that front. We have gotten some reporting that they are willing to move prospects. They are willing to move some of these talented young position players that they have in their farm system. But yeah, you also want to be reasonable about it at the same time.
Jesse, not only do you have to be reasonable about it, but you also can't mortgage the future too much. And at the same time, you can't squander Corbin Burns' time with this team, right?
Yeah.
Like, both of those things are kind of going on at the same time, because it feels like the Diamondbacks are getting very close to maybe not a rebuild, but a retool. Young players are going to be very important to that, as we've seen over the last few years. Look at how much Geraldo Perdomo and Corbin Carroll mean to this team, right? We have potentially more of those in the farm system, and it's all about developing them and giving those guys the opportunity instead of committing all of your money to high-priced free agents that don't necessarily work out for you. Also, something I talked about on yesterday's episode that I find kind of infuriating is that Fangraphs was talking about the roster crunch for the D-backs, and we covered their article on that. And one of the things they discussed was the Diamondbacks trading Dre Jameson away because there are teams apparently in Major League Baseball that believe in Trey Jameson being a starter still. And I was like, what are we doing? If people believe Trey Jameson is a starter, why don't the Diamondbacks believe Trey Jameson is a starter? On one hand, they might know something we don't, or might feel a certain way about it that we are not privy to. However, if that's the case and someone believes that Trey Jameson is a starter, then on the flip side, you should probably trade Trey Jameson and get a significant amount and then make us sad when he ends up being a starter with another team and posting a sub-4 ERA and somehow being a stud in a starting rotation, right? Like, I don't understand based on the small sample size what makes them think he can't be a starter, but the Diamondbacks' exact need is like a cheap option to give them some games in the starting rotation that could potentially be a convertible reliever, long reliever, high leverage reliever later on in the season. That sounds like Trey Jameson to me, so I don't know. But back to Zac Gallen. Obviously, as a free agent, it's going to be interesting to see what he gets. I do think Gallen will probably get at least a 2-year, $50 million deal, which makes the opting out of the contract make sense, right? And you never know, right? Like, it's crazy, but I am not suggesting this is possible or even something that's in the future, but maybe things aren't as great for him in free agency. Maybe Zac Gallen does come back to this team. I mean, like, that would still be a problem as far as the finances and everything. It would cost him even more than him accepting that offer. But it's not to say it's completely out of the question. It just does feel like this is the end of the line for Gallen with the Diamondbacks. So not ready to tip our cap to him and tell him thank you for his time here yet. We will do that when the time comes. But again, just kind of allows the Diamondbacks now to know what their game plan is. I'm sure they were already kind of planning for Gallen to not accept that qualifying offer, but they can now figure out how they make this team competitive for 2026.
Gallen is just a fascinating free agent case to me. I mean, this is a guy who we've seen can pitch in big games. I mean, has the stuff to be an ace caliber arm at his best.
Some of his best games were big games this year, right? Like, some of his big, that's what the joke was like he was only stepping up when it was like a New York team or somebody big, right? Like, he'd be incredible in those games.
You should probably go sign with the Mets or the Yankees. He's probably
going to. So we know that. We've already been feeling that.
But yeah, I just think that Gallen is he's just such a wild card for me in free agency. I mean, I could see a team really betting on Gallen bouncing back and looking at the numbers that he posted in the second half. You alluded to those numbers earlier. I mean, I guess this is from the trade deadline onward. It's 65 innings with a 3.32 ERA. I mean, that's pretty consistent.
That's pretty good
with the Zac Gallen that we've seen the past few years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could see Gallen getting 5 years over $100 million. I mean, I think Jim Bowden had 5 and 130 or something like that. 135, I want to say. But I've seen other people predicting, I think there was one that was like 2 and 40 or something, which seems outrageously low. I would be shocked if it was that low. But he's a really interesting case. I mean, who do people think this guy is? Right. He doesn't have, he's not throwing 96 miles an hour. He doesn't have nasty stuff. But his stuff isn't all that different now from where it was a couple years ago when I think he probably would have gotten, $150+ million if he had hit free agency a year or two ago.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Jeff Passan discussed Gallen. He said the home run ball vexed him with a career high 31 given up, nearly twice as many that he averaged in his previous 4 seasons. And that's something we've definitely discussed before, that Gallen just couldn't seem to not give up those home runs. He couldn't seem to not give up that big inning. Right. Like, it was similar to Brandon Pfaadt, where even when Zac Gallen was cruising, some inning was going to get him out of nowhere. And it was going to be like, wow, I feel like he pitched better, but his line is like 5 innings pitched, 6 earned runs. Like, yikes. This seemed much better. But Passan went on to say some teams see that as a sign that worse is ahead. Others believe it's an outlier and that he's in line for some positive regression. Gallen will benefit from the high prices being asked on the trade market, which serves to turn teams back to signing free agents. And so, that's where Gallen benefits here. And I hope he gets it, right? Like, you and I, we get the we are blessed to spend as much time as we are around these baseball players and get to know them. And Gallen is one of the guys that I have covered his entire tenure here with the Diamondbacks, and I know you have as well. He is a great person. He's just a real, like, easygoing, nice dude, and I just really do hope that he gets that big payday that he deserves. It sucks that one season is what could prevent that, what could be a roadblock for him, but I don't think it should be. I think Gallen, deserves it. And quite frankly, I think the Diamondbacks need to have a little bit of a change here themselves. So I think this hopefully works out for everybody, and Gallen can go perform elsewhere, but most importantly, get paid and get that security that he deserves after, the tremendous MLB career he's had so far.
I guess one of the complicated things, if you're in Gallen's camp right now, is that by rejecting the qualifying offer, he is going to have draft pick compensation tied to him in free agency. And the D-backs will be the beneficiaries of that. I mean, as long as he signs for $50 million or more, as you said earlier, they're going to get a draft pick right after the first round, which is a big asset for them. But it also means the team that signs him is going to have to weigh, like, are we willing to give Gallen $100 million and lose a draft pick in order to make this happen?
That's a good point.
I think it might hold back his free agency case a little bit. Like,
sure,
Gallen is a good player, and I think he's a solid candidate to bounce back. But are you willing to make a big financial commitment and surrender a draft pick for a guy who had a 4.83 ERA last season?
Yeah.
Like, you can see where some of the lower estimates are coming from. Like, I think it is reasonable for a team to be like, no, we would give Gallen $60 million, but we're not going to go much higher than that because we're also surrendering a draft pick, and he's coming off by far his worst season in the majors.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And also the Diamondbacks and qualifying offers have always kind of been weird. They haven't had much success in their history of players accepting qualifying offers, so we should have seen this coming. All four players that the Diamondbacks have made qualifying offers to have rejected them, including Gallen, Christian Walker last season, Patrick Corbin, and AJ Pollock. And also they have signed 3 players where they had to give up those exact draft picks you're talking about that required the qualifying offer, or that received qualifying offers from the former team. One of those was Corbin Burns just last year. Baltimore was a recipient there of the qualifying offer. Also 2 other pitchers, Madison Bumgarner and Zac Greinke. And funny enough, the Dodgers' usage of the compensatory pick for Zac Greinke was one catcher, Will Smith, World Series hero.
Wow, I've totally forgotten about that. That's crazy. See, the Diamondbacks gave the Dodgers Will Smith, is what you're saying.
They did. That's what I'm saying, Jesse. That's exactly what I'm saying. That is an unfortunate series of events. So anyway, we got more news to talk about, of course, and we are going to do that on the other side of this break. Other players that did accept their qualifying offers, and what the hell the Mets are doing there with Frankie Montas. And I'm going to throw it out there, but would he be a good fit for the Diamondbacks now that he's been DFA'd? We'll get to that on the other side of this break. Don't you go anywhere. You're watching the PHNX Diamondback Show. Well, I'm glad Jesse's not on screen for this one, because this would have just been a little much for our guy out of the gate, but not for me, because we are thrilled to be partnering together with Fascinations. And let me tell you, as a man who has been happily married for a very long time, Fascinations has already been a part of my life. So make sure this holiday season you get what you really want, get them what they really want at Fascinations. Get your significant other a great time. At Fascination, they've got everything to make your nights very merry, very bright. And let's be honest, walking into certain types of shops like Fascinations might not be for everybody, right? Might be the thing that has kept you from checking out Fascinations. But right now, forget the weird eye contact, forget the awkwardness. You can shop online and get fast and easy pickup in store. Totally discreet. You can shop online at fascinations.net or visit one of their 12 locations in Arizona. But again, if you want to get your significant other and yourself an amazing time this holiday season, check out what happens over at Fascination, because of course what happens under the mistletoe stays under the mistletoe, especially if you do the discreet fast and easy in-store pickup. Use promo code PHNX30 at checkout to receive 30% off your order. That's happy holiday right there. That's PHNX 30 for 30% off your order at fascinations.net. Fascinations, naughty list approved for sure. Also, whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. Make sure to go download that Bet365 app right now. Get in on all of the football fun that is happening. And look, we are Arizona Cardinals fans here in Arizona. We're not having a lot of fun watching this football team, but just because they're a bunch of losers on the field doesn't mean you have to be over at the Bet365 app. You could get down and make sure you just bet against the Cardinals, right? Again, just because they lose doesn't mean you have to. They have offers throughout the entire season for you to get down on. Of course, they have a Thursday night football offer with a $10 safety net bet offer. They have a $365,000 jackpot on Sunday night football you can get in on, as well as a 50% super profit boost token on same game parlays for Monday night football. So that is just some of the wonderful promotions you can get down on over there at Bet365. And they have their early payout offer for both college football and NFL, where you're a winner if your team goes ahead by 17 points, with a instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections being marked as winners. Download that Bet365 app. New customers, you'll get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use that code of PHNX365 when you do. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to receive $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, players, props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or over and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.net. .gov, excuse me. Got that wrong there at the end. I almost nailed it, Jesse. Almost nailed it and got the .gov wrong. Well, of course, like I said, there are some other news around Major League Baseball. Kind of some surprising qualifying offers that were accepted. Shota Imanaga accepts a qualifying offer from the Chicago Cubs, and I think that one was a big surprise. That entire situation with his contract and the declining, the player option, and then them declining the other years and everything just going back and forth. It felt like Imanaga was potentially destined to be a free agent, but here he is accepting the qualifying offer to stay in Chicago.
It is a really interesting one. I mean, just some odd kind of gymnastics negotiations that have gone back and forth between Imanaga.
I feel like Shota lost. I feel like Shota lost this round.
I mean, I guess $22 million is a pretty decent amount of money for him to make after the season he had. I know
he wasn't very good last year.
He had a decent ERA. I mean, he was a 3.73 ERA, but you look at the park adjusted numbers, it's just a 103 ERA plus. It's basically league average innings.
Right.
And his FIP was 4.86. He gave up a bunch of home runs. He gave up 31 homers in just 144 and 2/3 innings. So I think it's reasonable to be a little concerned about Imanaga from this point forward. I don't think he's someone you really want to pay $22 million per season. But if you're the Cubs, I mean, you can stomach that. It's just 1 year. The Cubs, obviously, they have the means. They were going to be going out and looking for starting pitching anyway. So maybe Imanaga is able to bounce back and hit free agency next offseason after a better, I guess this wasn't really a walk year per se. But there were all sorts of options and things in his contract at the end of this season. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out.
Kind of surprising. And again, I was, once I saw that news come down, it didn't really change what I thought was going to happen with Zac Gallen, but I did feel like, all right, well, considering that's what you just said, how you feel about Imanaga, I think that's how we kind of framed it for Gallen. Like Gallen coming back to the Diamondbacks made a lot of sense just based on the fact that, $22 million is still a lot of money, and it gives him an opportunity to rebound and still get that big contract while he's still fairly young and, next offseason. But again, Shota, a guy that they were really excited about there in Chicago. And I feel like the home run situation that you're describing is the reason why I feel like a lot of fans there were reacting in a similar fashion to what we saw D-backs fans saying about Zac Gallen, like almost like if he takes it, then good, but if not, see ya and your FIP.
Yeah, I think Imanaga, the home run thing was always going to be a risk for him in particular. I remember back to when you and I were talking about Imanaga versus Yamamoto. Could the
Oh
D-backs
God.
maybe be in on one of these guys? we weren't ever really talking seriously about Yamamoto because you knew the price tag was going to be crazy.
For sure.
But Imanaga, I mean, the strikeout and walk numbers in Japan were pretty compelling there. The concern was like, if this guy is just pounding the zone with this 91 mile an hour fastball
in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, like, is his command of that pitch going to be good enough for it to not just get yanked over the fence a whole bunch? And this past season, the command was not as good as, I mean, he was like robotic when he first entered the majors in 2024. I mean, he was dotting the upper part of the strike zone with that pitch. It has a lot of upward carry. It was playing, even though it's a lower velo pitch. But, I think you saw the stuff drop off a little bit too. It was down a tick this year. 90.8 miles an hour was his average on that four-seam fastball. So he's just really going to have to have pinpoint command with that pitch if he's going to find success. And obviously he wasn't able to do that to the same degree this year.
All right, so we have a couple of other guys that accepted their qualifying offers. Gleyber Torres staying with the Tigers. That seemed a little surprising. I thought it was inevitable that he would become a free agent. Trent Grisham stays with the Yankees. That one makes a little bit more sense. That seems like a pretty good situation for Grisham to stay in. And then, and they're still going after a first baseman / outfielder, whatever. So I don't think, what they're going to ask of him is going to be like a 162 games at all. And then Brandon Woodruff accepted the Brewers qualifying offer. That's another situation that I think was a little bit more in line with what we expected. But, again, Gleyber Torres, a little bit of a surprise. Overall, not a surprise that only 4 guys accepted qualifying offers here. It feels like, again, that this is, a year that the market is still very unpredictable for free agents. And I think that some didn't want to test it and some see how much money is being thrown around in Major League Baseball and want to give it a shot. And I again, like I've said with labor disputes and everything else, go get your money, because baseball is structured in such a way that it makes it very difficult for some guys to ever get paid the amount they should. Gallen, quite frankly, could be one of those guys if he does get one of those short-term deals that you were describing there overall, because again, we've always felt like Gallen was going to get that big payday and deserved it for setting major league records like he did when he came into the league and just being as consistently good as he was for the Diamondbacks.
The Gleyber Torres one was a little surprising for me until I realized how miserable he was in the second half for the Tigers. And these numbers are crazy. He hit 223 with a 659 OPS in the second half of the season. So, and that was after being an all-star. He was awesome in the first half. So when you factor that in, it makes sense. It's like, oh, wow, this guy only ended with a 108 OPS plus, making $22 million in free agency for a year, and then going back out next offseason, re-entering the market, not having to worry about having draft pick compensation tied to you. That makes a lot of sense from his perspective. Same story with Trent Grisham. No huge surprises there. He had a good year for the Yankees, but I think it was a bit of an outlier season for him. I think it was going to be tough for him to do super well in free agency with that draft pick compensation tied to him as well. Brandon Woodruff, though, that one surprised me maybe a little bit, just because we know how great the demand is for starting pitching all the time. And Woodruff has health questions, no doubt, but he came back from a pretty major shoulder procedure and was pretty darn good when he was out there this season. I mean, he had, and pull up the numbers here. I mean, it was pretty typical, like ace level Brandon Woodruff type stuff with the Brewers. I just looked up Sam Woodruff, who apparently played in like the early 1900s. Let me find Brandon Woodruff. Brandon
Woodruff in there.
Yeah, there we go. Brandon Woodruff had a 3.20 ERA in 12 starts, 3.17 FIP, 83 strikeouts to just 14 walks. Like, he was really good. These numbers are basically in line with his career norms. I think he could have gotten a multi-year deal in free agency at maybe, I don't know if he would have gotten 20 mil per year, but he might have gotten pretty close to that in a multi-year deal.
I did not based on like how the season went, I did not think he made 12 starts.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I thought he made maybe 6, right?
It's
like,
an event every time Brandon Woodruff actually pitches.
Right. Yeah. No. And I mean, again, I thought that was the reason why I said earlier, I thought it was a slam dunk, because again, he didn't have enough time recovering from that injury or coming back from that injury to really, I guess, impress teams enough, or the sample size just wasn't big enough. But I don't know. 12 games is kind of enough for me to think that, like, if he's coming back and he's healthy, that this is a guy that can still go. Am I turning into a robot?
Not a robot. I just have a bit of delay on my end.
All right.
I can still make out most of what you're saying. I think
the internet is a frustrating place sometimes, for sure. But all right, we'll try our best to press on here. The Mets, Jesse. So it's like I'm almost trying to wait for my face to catch up to my words. The Mets designated Frankie Montas for assignment. And again, that's something that is amazing, considering that they are eating $17 million of that contract for 2026.
Yeah, I think Montas had Tommy John surgery, if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
Yeah, so I think this is sort of a formality for the Mets, where he wasn't going to pitch for them anyway. They're going to be stuck paying that money no matter what. So they're just designating him for assignment so that they can make a roster spot for somebody who might actually have an impact for them in 2026.
I understand that 100%. But $17 million, Jesse. That's a lot of money, considering when we talked about what the Diamondbacks have to spend.
Yeah, it is kind of wild. Like, just seeing any team just throw $17 million, sort of into the wind, even though, again, like, I don't know if Montas, there's really much of a chance he could pitch for the Mets next year. But yeah, I guess it is kind of interesting. I mean, sometimes we see teams like they'll keep the player around and let them rehab in their organization, as opposed to trying to find a home elsewhere. But I guess at this point, like, 40-man roster spots are kind of at a premium with the Rule 5 draft around the corner. So maybe the Mets are like, no, we need to protect this guy. I think they protected their number 16 prospect, it looks like, over on MLB Pipeline as a result of this move. So that's something that maybe they couldn't have done if they weren't willing to make this move with Montas.
Well, overall here, it's just, again, it shows, and you're right, like $17 million, whether he's on the roster or not, you're jeopardizing a young prospect overall and their ability to add that person to their 40-man roster. But it just also seems like, Jesse, like, it's just a case of how much teams like the Mets and the Dodgers have. $17 million just to, just to eat. And I think that's what I was stuck on, especially looking at some of Montas's numbers. Like, overall, I was really considering here, like, do the Diamondbacks, again, I not now, and his career might be over, right? Like, his 2025 stats weren't great as it is. And again, coming back from that injury is not going to be easy. But, overall here, it's just more of a, I'm so jealous of another organization's ability to overcome things like this. This is what we talked about with the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers have this ability to make mistakes financially, make mistakes on talent and personnel assessment, and not have it be catastrophic to their season, not have it be something that completely blows up on them. And same thing here with the Mets. The Mets are eating nearly $20 million. And just from that perspective, just from the, like, pure jealousy perspective, all I can think is, like, that's half of the money that the Diamondbacks have to, have to spend this year. And again, I know a lot of those teams don't really care about spending. The $17 million, like you said, is going to be wasted one way or another on him, and he's not going to be back for almost the entirety of next year. Plus, even if he does come back with the talented staff they have, how would he even factor in to that Mets team anyway, right? But again, it's just the fact that teams like the Mets, teams like the Dodgers have their ability to just eat this kind of money. They're already paying a bunch in the tax and the payroll spending, situation. So it's like it just makes me sick. But anyway, I also wanted Frankie Montas for the Diamondbacks for sure, and so like this whole situation is like to me.
He was like an interesting bounce back candidate until, of course, the injury happens, and we don't really know what the future holds. I will say,
he's never been very good. Let's be honest. Like, he's never been what I think people thought he was going to be, but at the same time, it's like he's just one of those names that you always felt like was, he's going to figure it out. He's going to put it together.
Yeah, he had like a couple good seasons in Oakland, if I'm remembering right.
That's right.
But
that's what makes you think of him highly, I think, is those years with the Athletics.
Yeah, it's still wild though that he got 2 years and $34 million in the first place. Like, I remember when that deal was signed last offseason, I was like, if that's what Frankie Montas costs, like, I don't want to know what some of these top flight starters are going to cost. I guess
Zac
on the
Gallen's
topic,
going to get $200 million.
Yeah, right. But I guess on that topic, like, the Diamondbacks did sign one of the top starting pitchers last offseason in Corbin Burns, and they are in the position that you're kind of describing here, where obviously they're not designated Corbin Burns for assignment. Like, this contract is much longer than that, but they are having to go through a similar thing where that's about $30 million in dead money for 2025, and it's not just him. You factor in, Justin Martinez and his new contract, and then AJ Puck as well. Like, the D-backs are having to find a way in 2026 to make the pieces fit together when they have a lot of dead money just due to injuries on their payroll, in addition to the payroll dropping, or at least we're expecting it to drop going into next season. So to your point, it's hard for the D-backs to overcome things like this, whereas the Mets are probably not losing a ton of sleep over Frankie Montas, pay him off $17 million, designate him for assignment. It's not a huge deal to them.
Well, it does feel though like options when we talk about the 4 players that did accept qualifying options, qualifying offers. The options are getting more and more limited for the Diamondbacks. Not to say they were going to go after any of these guys. Not to say they're going to go after a Framber Valdez, because I would lose my mind if they did. Right? Like, there's no way. But then I would have said that the last 2 off seasons about one Corbin Burns and one Jordan Montgomery. I would have said there's no way. I'm sure at one point we even like briefly discussed Corbin Burns and then just brushed it off as like we would we would do it this postseason. Like, Dylan Cease or Framber Valdez, you're crazy to think the Diamondbacks are going to get them. And the next thing you know, you and I are sitting in the press conference welcoming Dylan Cease to the Arizona Diamondbacks, right? Like, I'm not ruling anything out, but I very much doubt that any of the big names that you're going to see are going to involve the D-backs at all. And that's not new information. That's just where they stand as far as their payroll and everything like that. I think the one area they could make a flashy move with is a trade, right? Hopefully it's not a Ketel Marte trade. But again, Jesse, I think that's the reason why the Ketel Marte rumors are so strong. There's a lot of factors that make sense. And I guess that it makes me feel like we're just discussing factors. Like, Ketel Marte is an amazing player. He's on a fairly team-friendly contract. There's really no reason to trade him unless you want to dig into, the situation with the team and him missing days and stuff last year. That's where you might start saying, like, you as an organization don't feel like he's as committed to this as we want somebody that's getting paid this much to be. You also might just see the potential huge return that you could get for Ketel Marte here when the Diamondbacks, quite frankly, need it. They need a huge return. They need major league ready talent that can come help this team in 2026. But outside of like just, those are facts. Like, a Ketel Marte trade still doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's just the only move that would be that flashy big move that would feel like it changes the organization.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a matter of like, the D-backs have a lot of needs this offseason and not a ton of money to spend, we don't think. So how are you going to fill those gaps without going way over budget? I mean, the answer is to make trades. And Mike Hazen has talked about that it sounds like the D-backs are going to be aggressive on that front, but it's also like it's going to be hard for this team to gain significant impact via trade if Ketel Marte isn't involved. It's not impossible.
Right.
I mean, I'm curious, like, what is Jordan Lawler worth on the trade market? What is a Ryan Waldschmidt worth, even though I'm sure people probably don't like hearing that name floated around in trade rumors.
I get very rioty when you start talking about Ryan Waldschmidt. I want to get a
I know, and you guys just had him on the show. So
yeah,
that's probably
he was great. Tremendous young man
around here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll fight you. We will fight you if you try to come for Ryan Waldschmidt. But we'll also fight you about Ketel Marte. We are protective of our players that we feel are great, right? Ryan Waldschmidt definitely not proven at a major league level, but you just get the sense that he is going to be like that next guy. You know, You just don't know, and that right now is the only thing that I think gives Jordan Lawler that value that you're discussing. Like, what is Jordan Lawler's value? Well, it's going to vary from team to team, but there are going to be some players, some scouts, some teams, some organizations, some front offices in MLB that have always wanted Jordan Lawler and have coveted him. And the opportunity to get him, regardless of what he's done in the Dominican Winter League, regardless of what he's done in AAA, regardless of what he's done at a major league level, they will look past all of that potentially. It's not, maybe not a lot of teams, but there's a handful of teams that feel that way about certain players, that they would give you more for them because they truly feel like he is a future great, and that if they get them in their organization, they'll be able to turn things around for him. I don't know how the Diamondbacks feel any longer about some of these guys. If they still feel that way, it's like what I said earlier about Dre Jameson. If there's other teams that covet Dre Jameson, then why don't the Diamondbacks covet him as a potential future starter? And that might just be because they have far more information on Dre Jameson than anybody else does, similar to Jordan Lawler. Like, Jordan Lawler just might be a case where the Diamondbacks feel like he might not work out, but right now teams don't know that yet. And this might be the opportunity to trade someone like him for a tremendous value.
I think Dre is such an interesting situation because it's not all that long ago that we were talking about Dre Jameson as like a guy who would stick in the D-backs rotation for a long time. I mean, when he first came up, he made quite an impression. At the same time, I think there's a difference between other teams being able to get Dre to be a reliable starter in the big leagues and the Diamondbacks being able to get Dre Jameson to be a reliable starter in the big leagues. Unfortunately, that's just the reality for this team right now. Like, are the D-backs the team that's going to find a way to get that, that struggling reliever? Obviously, Dre has had some significant injuries here in the recent past, but it's just a little hard to imagine it. Like, the D-backs have had a really hard time developing starting pitching. That, I kind of believe there are a couple other teams around the league. They get their hands on Dre Jameson and maybe they got something there.
Yeah.
I don't know if the D-backs are that team to figure that out, though.
I know, and I hate that. And it's the same reason why when we sit here and get mad about Max Scherzer having a stellar career elsewhere, or other guys that have left and really excelled when they weren't that for us, maybe like a Robbie Ray, for instance, right? That, those guys may have never been that if they stayed as a part of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And that might be one of the true things that is at fault, wrong with this organization, right? Their ability to develop pitchers and make young pitchers into better pitchers. It's what I felt Brent Strom was brought here for, and it was something I thought that Brent Strom was going to be very good at for this team. And apparently they did not feel the same way. So that's the reason why he's no longer here. But I don't know, man. I mean, I do think that, the Diamondbacks have some dogs that they have, kind of homegrown here. And I think that some of those guys could be more of the answers. And I'm not truly convinced that Dre Jameson isn't one of those guys, right? Like, so again, it's just, you might be right, and I think you are because you're always right. I just think that overall, it just confounds me that there are other teams that believe in Dre Jameson, and here the Diamondbacks sit in a position of desperation, you could say, like needing a guy that essentially has this exact skill set that apparently other teams feel that he has, but the Diamondbacks don't feel that he has as a internal candidate. So really interesting. We'll see how that develops, but we have so much more to talk about, including all of these roster moves the Diamondbacks had to make those decisions on who would be safe and protected from the Rule 5 draft. We're going to get to that on the other side of this break. Don't you guys go anywhere. You're watching the PHNX Diamondback Show. Well, our friends at Branded Bills are already doing their Black Friday deal right now. So if you have not started your holiday shopping, get started over at Branded Bills. You can get yourself some great hats, some great discounts. Of course, they have their partnerships with over 40 universities, ASU and U of A included, as well as a partnership with the Phoenix Suns. So if you're a hat aficionado like myself, make sure to go grab yourself and maybe your loved ones some hats as well. Like maybe just not shop all for yourself. Get some gifts while you're there too. They have some great Christmas hats right now as well in honor of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, my favorite holiday movie, and Jesse's, we'll say, least is what we'll say. But regardless of where you stand there, make sure to go out, get yourself some amazing hats. And also it's a local company from right here in Mesa, Arizona. So it's always great to shop local. Head to brandedbills.com and use our code of BBPHNX for 15% off your first order. And of course, if you are a company looking to get your brand to stand apart from the crowd, this is the place to do so. You can start your order over there at Branded Bills, and their dedicated team will take care of you with some of the best custom apparel you can find. Also, guys, over at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, you guys know nobody does it better. As it says there, achieve legendary status. Whether that legendary status involves going to one of their two AAA 4-diamond resorts for a staycation to relax, enjoy yourself, rejuvenate yourself, or for a wonderful night out on the town at any one of their casinos with their over 4,500 slots and live table games, as well as their sports book, which is the place to stop by, get yourself a drink, get yourself some wonderful food, watch a game, and get that little paper ticket in your hand. They're all about delivering an unprecedented level of entertainment and excitement that you just won't find anywhere else. So as you know, you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playathila.com for more details. Jesse, the D-backs did make their roster moves last night, and we were expecting a few names to end up on the 40-man roster. I think there was a little surprise there as far as what they had to do to make room for the guys they added. But first, Christian Montes de Oca was outrighted to AAA Reno, so he was removed from the 40-man roster. Meanwhile, the following guys were added to the 40-man roster: Mitch Bratt, Cole Drake, two names that we have talked about a lot on this show. In fact, we said that these are the guys that the Diamondbacks needed to protect. As you and I have talked about time and time again, Jesse, it's pretty much about guys that are major league ready talent. And when you look at Bratt, when you look at Drake, those are two guys. Cole Drake got hampered a little bit by the injury, so his development kind of got slowed down, but both guys could easily get taken by a Major League Baseball team that doesn't have very good starting pitching or even a full rotation like the Diamondbacks do not have. And both of those guys could have ended up staying on a roster for the full year if they found success. So those guys were protected, as well as infielder Jose Fernandez and another pitcher in Dylan Ray. So again, Ray is a name we've also brought up. Jose Fernandez, a little bit of a surprise that he was added to the roster. I think the Diamondbacks just kind of needed to ensure that they had some infield depth. And according to some things I've seen, Fernandez has been having himself a good minor league career. So another guy that appears to be fairly major league ready.
Yeah, Fernandez is he's definitely the most surprising name of that group for me. I think Drake and Bratt, as you said, you weren't going to trade Merrill Kelly for two good pitching prospects. I guess really three, and then lose two of them to the Rule 5 draft. That wouldn't make any sense. So no surprises on those guys. Jose Fernandez, though, a name that I didn't necessarily see coming. He was kind of in the mix, a name that at least came to mind. But, you look at his numbers in AA from this past year. They don't necessarily jump off the page. He hit 272, 72 homers. That would have been something. 17 homers and 80 runs batted in. He had 12 stolen bases. But again, this is AA. It's a super hitter friendly environment. It's only a 99 WRC plus. So he's basically a league average hitter. But, reading up on this a little bit, I know Nick Picoro wrote about these roster moves today. He said that some people view Jose Fernandez's floor as being that of a lefty masher, kind of middle infield utility type player. He plays some shortstop, plays a pretty decent shortstop from what we know. And that profile that makes sense that you might want to protect that player. Again, the $1 million question with all these guys is like, would a team be willing to stash that player on their active roster for a full season? And I don't know that the answer is yes for Jose Fernandez, but you could imagine that if you view Jose Fernandez as a pretty good defender, and maybe you're not sure about his ability to hit righties in the majors just yet, but if you think he can hit lefties, I mean, this guy is only 22 years old. So it'd be a sneaky good opportunity for another team to pluck a solid utility player out of the D-backs organization. Again, I don't know for sure that like Jose Fernandez was guaranteed to be selected, but I can at least understand the reasoning from the Diamondbacks perspective.
Well, Jesse, another name, obviously, that is part of this is that Tommy Henry was designated for assignment. Again, I was a little shocked by that. I know that he is a guy that also had Tommy John surgery. So much like we were kind of talking about a little earlier with Frankie Montas, it's not that he was going to miss the whole season, but Tommy Henry kind of is and always has been a depth piece for the Diamondbacks at starting pitching, right? So it feels like designating him for assignment makes a little bit of sense due to his recovery, but it also kind of caught me off guard. I was a little surprised by that.
It was interesting at the very least. I mean, I didn't expect Tommy Henry to be DFA'd. I guess at this point, the D-backs have 7 days to either trade him or put him on waivers. If they put him on waivers, then another team could claim him. Maybe this is the end of Tommy Henry's tenure in the Diamondbacks organization, which would be a shame because, you think back to 2023. I mean, Tommy Henry was a valuable member of that team that went to the World Series. He wasn't able to pitch in the playoffs, unfortunately, but he had a 4.15 ERA, he pitched in 17 games, 16 starts, 89 innings. But it's just been a weird story for him where he showed promise when he first came up. It looked like in 2023, he really took that next step. He was ready to be in a big league rotation for a long time as a guy who just kind of throws the kitchen sink at you and has pretty decent command. But over time, his stuff has just kind of dropped off. I mean, he averaged 91.5 with his fastball when he first came up in 2022. I know it was 6 2/3 innings this past year. It's not a huge sample, but it was 88.9 that he averaged with his fastball. And it's just those numbers have just kind of ticked down every season that he's, since he first came up to the big league. So I think Tommy Henry is indicative of some of the bigger questions about D-backs pitching development. I know it's another topic that Nick Bacoro did a deep dive on recently over at the Arizona Republic. Like, why is it that some of these D-backs pitching prospects, their stuff over time is not getting better? It's actually getting worse. And it feels like there's maybe some issues with what they're asking these guys to do, or maybe not asking these guys to do. Maybe they're being a little bit too conservative. I know that was part of the angle for Nick's story. So certainly wish Tommy Henry all the best, no matter what. You and I, again, we've been lucky enough to spend a lot of time around some of these guys. Tommy Henry, truly one of the best guys in that clubhouse. I mean, super easy to talk to, very personable. But it's been a rough go for him here recently, and hopefully he lands on his feet.
For sure. And I think we think that about everybody, right? I'm a little behind here again, but I do think that, we do wish the best for all of these guys for sure. But again, roster moves had to be made, and those guys are now protected from the Rule 5 draft. There are some names that are still possibly in danger, but it seemed like most of them are fairly fringe prospect candidates to do so. And again, just got to remember that a team needs to keep them on the roster the entire year. That's not very easy to do in general with any prospect, let alone unproven prospects like the Diamondbacks have, that most of them have not served. They don't have major league experience at all in any way, shape, or form. But just want to remind you guys, of course, if you are not a diehard already, join us. This is a great time to do so. You get exclusive content, get access to our PHNX lounge, which is the exclusive place here, best place to talk Arizona sports on Discord with us, PHNX folks over here. You get a free t-shirt, you get 20% off your merchandise, you get 20% off events. So head on over to gophnx.com and prove your fanhood by becoming a PHNX diehard today. We thank so many of you that have already done so. Thanks so many of you guys that have joined our supporters club. Great to see so many of you on YouTube as well. But Jesse, I know we usually do this on Thursdays, but today is a very important day in D-backs history. I know we've done this before on this exact day, but on November 18th, back in 1997, MLB had a good old expansion draft in downtown Phoenix, Arizona at the Phoenix Civic Center. The Arizona Diamondbacks and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays at the time, still a much better name, decided to get together and build their rosters prior to debuting in the National League and American League divisions, respectively, in their 1998 MLB seasons. And I had some of the names come up here, but it was kind of fascinating to just once again look at that draft, look at those results, and see exactly how this franchise was shaped in those early days and how quickly it changed from 1998, where Devon White was our best player, to what happened in 1999 and beyond with that, world championship roster.
Yeah, I mean, the D-backs, they held their own in the expansion draft. There's a few
did all right
in there, but yeah, it wasn't Gabe Alvarez, their third overall pick, who carried them to the World Series. There are some names in here. I'm looking at Omar Dahl, who they took in the second round, their second pick in the second round, and he certainly was pretty good for them. But it's a weird part of becoming a Major League Baseball franchise where you do the expansion draft thing and you're plucking guys off other teams around the league. Yes. In a big picture sense, though, Derek, sometimes I think about, like, if this hadn't happened, like just my whole life arc, the kind of person I would be if the Arizona Diamondbacks had not existed.
Yes.
As someone,
and that there was a time when they didn't exist, right? Like there was a time where there wasn't baseball here, and now we're so lucky to have it and do jobs based on it. But they did miss on the Bobby Abreu pick there. I got to admit, that was one that they might have missed out on a little bit.
That's fair.
Aside from that, they did all right. See, here's the thing. They should have known to get a Venezuelan. Venezuelans always very successful in this franchise. Had they figured that out earlier on, they probably would have been in good shape for sure overall. Jesse, what do you guys got cooking up on Snakes territory? I love what you guys and you and Jack have going on over there always.
Yeah. We on, I believe, Thursday of this week, our next show, we're going to have the great Nick Picoro, have referenced a few times earlier. He's going to stop by. We're going to talk about some of the stories he's written recently. He did some great reporting at the GM meetings here in the past week or so. And then that deep dive I mentioned earlier about D-backs pitching development and how they're really looking closely at every aspect of that, trying to figure out why they've struggled to the degree they have to develop pitchers. It's really, I think, maybe the most pressing big picture question that this organization faces. That's a question that Nick really dug into a lot in a recent story. So we're excited to talk with him about that. And then I know you guys are doing here a lot, like, every trade idea, every rumor, every
single one.
We're desperate for things to talk about. So if we sound like we're making things up at a certain point, it's probably because we are, because we just have to keep recording podcasts. So it's part of the gig.
We just press on, Jesse. We just press on through it. We press on through the off season. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you as always. Make sure to follow him over at Jesse N. Friedman on Twitter. Make sure to check out Snakes Territory at Snakes Territory on Twitter and everywhere you get your podcast, just like this show. And again, Jesse, appreciate your time so much, bud. Big shout out to Ayrton, who I ignored because we are remote and the internet's terrible and StreamYard's terrible sometimes. And this is what happens when we're doing things remotely, especially at my house. I don't know what's wrong with the internet at my house, but shout out to Ayrton for keeping us locked down. He is at Freckled Mamba. That is the best Twitter handle in the company. I am at Cap_caveman with a K. People don't understand it, and sometimes neither do I. But regardless, we thank you guys for your time. Our show is at PHNX_DBacks. And as always, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Appreciate you so much for stopping by. We will see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. And like Jesse said, we're going to press on and figure out how to fix this Diamondbacks team together as a group, as a family. We're going to figure it out. So we thank you again so much for your time. We appreciate you. We love you. We will see you tomorrow. Until then, behave yourselves. Have a wonderful evening. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you can move on from your players making decisions about sticking around.
We all silly like the mayor.